cyborgs, and welcome to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell because it was so good. Now before I go any further in my gushings and explanations and things, a book haiku. Comets on shoulders and nursing homes and AI and stellar writing. So I promised to do a review video of this because Alina from Marlin Alina wanted to know my thoughts because she has tried it and was like, I don't know, and I would definitely have done this review no matter what I gave the book because someone asked me nicely. But I'm also just so glad that I was committed already because I would have probably done a book review of this anyway because I gave this 5 stars. It was so impressive. It was so impressive. Okay, so I know this was my most intimidating book on my TBR pile. This was also one of the 5 books I wanted to get to in 2016. So there was like a lot of things, baggage, about this book. And I think that my overestimating it meant that what it actually is, which is a lovely, harmless, entertaining, not too difficult, interestingly put together, formatted book, I lost my grammar. Since this is actually so welcoming, me being extra scared of it made it even more welcoming is what I'm trying to say. So I know that a lot of you have this on your shelves and it's just staring at you like, ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da. A lot of you are probably intimidated by this because maybe you haven't read any other David Mitchell. You know it's supposed to be super freaking awesome. That's a lot for a book to live up to. And the first narrative takes place in 1850 and it's diary format. So it's all old-timey language and different characters that aren't really easy for you to get in your head. But please move past it. It's only 40 pages max, the first chunk of the first narrative. And then after that, if it's not your jam, you will find something that you really enjoy reading. I actually really did enjoy the first narrative, which is, as I say, it takes place in New Zealand in 1850. And it's the journal of Adam Ewing, who is a solicitor on a voyage from New Zealand to California where he lives. And I really enjoyed it because it reminded me a lot of Moby Dick, but it was more enjoyable of a reading experience than Moby Dick. Moby Dick right now is kind of boring me. I've still got 25% left or something like that. I see the end, but it's kind of putting me to sleep a little bit right now. So this didn't put me to sleep at all. So the next narrative then takes place, let me just get my notes, make sure I get it right, in 1931 in Belgium. Then the third narrative takes place in California in 1975, and it's kind of a corporate espionage cover-up sort of scenario. Then there's a narrative that takes place in London in the early 2000s. This was my least favorite narrative, but I still didn't absolutely hate reading about it. Then there's a narrative that takes place in Korea in a dystopian future, and the narrative is told by an AI, which is awesome. And then the final narrative, which was my favorite, is a post-apocalyptic narrative in the far future that takes place in Hawaii. I didn't think that would be my favorite, but it ended up being my favorite because of the dialect in that was so different from how we speak these days. But after a while, it was a point of pride that I could understand what was being said. And I also thought that the world building was really great because it's not anything that we have an analog to. David Mitchell had to describe how this world functioned, and I thought he did an excellent job of doing that. Let me just give you a flavor of that narrative's dialect. Old Georgie's path and mine cross more times than I'm comfy memorinin', and after I'm died, no saying what that fangy devil won't try and do to me. So give me some mutton and I'll tell you about our first meeting. A fat, jokesome slice, nay, none of your burnt wafery offerings. Abbreviated words, lots of apostrophes, dropped vowels, but just go with the flow and it will take you places you didn't know you wanted to go. So I, as I said, was so impressed with this. That's my main takeaway, is I am so impressed with what David Mitchell is capable of, how he can have 6 completely different narratives, styles, times, and places, and I don't care about the interconnectedness. That's really, the movie makes a huge deal about that. That's not the point of this. The point of this, or at least the thing that impressed me the most, was just that each narrative had the same care, attention, and time placed upon it. When he was writing them, I couldn't see if he preferred one narrative or the other. It seemed like he took each story with the same amount of respect and the same amount of effort, like I said, and created something awesome. At the end of each, first half of the narrative, because it starts out with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's how the book is divided. So at the end of each one, I would have been fine carrying on, but I was also just excited to see what was coming next because the thing that had come before had not disappointed me at all in the least. This was actually a really fast read. I read half of this at least whilst I was traveling, and I'm notoriously awful at reading while I'm visiting family because I have social engagements, and by the time I get to my room, I'm dead beat tired. But I found time and energy and interest to actually finish this while I was there, which is a huge, like, gold star. Like, just like he gets another star, 6 out of 5 stars for that, because normally I don't read when I travel, but this made me want to read while I travel, so that was amazing. You know, sometimes the pace slows down when you're getting into the new narrative, but once you get into the new narrative, this is such a fast read. Like, it's not boring. It's not boring. Once you get into the narratives, you're just like, okay, and the story just takes you where it needs to go. Also, like I mentioned before, the unique voices and the unique vocabularies in this are just stellar. They weren't overdone. I didn't think they were gimmicky. Even if it hadn't been organized in chunks like it was, where you knew who was speaking, I would have been able to tell who was speaking because it was just so different. There was also a nice use of different like fonts and formats. So like one of these narratives is like an interview transcription, another is letters, another is a manuscript to a novel. It's just really good. It's really, really good. Genre defying. I've heard other people talk about it and I can't remember who, so I'm sorry. Probably stealing ideas. Genre bending. Also, it's both literary fiction and popular fiction, which is grand because then there are people who maybe would only pick up books that they see at the grocery store who, you know, when this was huge and came out in 2004, picked this up and got to see like what a 5-star book is. You know, not to downplay James Patterson or the romance novels, but sometimes those aren't the best representations of what books can be. And I think this is a wonderful example of what books can be. Whilst I was reading this, when I was doing my status updates, I would share with you a line that I was just like, oh my gosh, because his writing style is so easy to get through, but it's also really beautiful. And at times there were lines where I was just like, oh my gosh, this was really good. This was a really good line. When I reread this, which I will because it was 5 stars, I will probably be going like have just a pen tucked behind my ear the entire time because there's so much in here that I'll probably underline since I already like I know what the plots are going, so I can appreciate the style of writing even more. To sum up, please just try this. Please try this. Please try like at least the first like 80 pages. It's like a 450 page book or something. No, it's 530 page book. So try the first 80 pages. That way you'll have like 3 of the narratives, first halves of those narratives under your belt. You'll get to see if you're interested at all to see what comes next. If nothing hasn't piqued your interest already, please just read it. You know, in here, even though it's fun and interesting and fast reading and the vocabulary and voices are unique, but there's also a lot of really heavy messages that are just like touched on. Like it's just there. Like if you see it and you want to examine it more in your brain, you're welcome to. It's not a lot of it is force fed to you, but there is a lot of stuff to think about in here. And I love books that make me think about things that especially have to do with like the human race. Are we poo or are we going to save ourselves one day? I loved how this ended too. One of my favorite quotes was at the ending, and it's not a spoiler, and it's in my review. So if you want to see what quote was one of my favorites, then you're gonna have to go see my review on Goodreads. So that was my review of Cloud Atlas. I gave that thing 5 out of 5 stars. I was gonna say 5 out of 6 stars. Nope, it could have been 6 out of 5 stars, but 5 out of 5. We're just gonna stick with that. It was really good. I'm so glad I got to it. I'm so glad that it was like, no, Amanda, don't be scared of me. I'm actually freaking awesome. I know, Cloud Atlas, you are. I know. So thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below if you're at all any more interested in reading this. Have you read anything else by David Mitchell? Where do you think I should go now that I've read his like pièce de résistance? Where should I go next? I'm thinking of next trying The Thousand Summers of Jacob van Zuijme. That one. And then after that, I think The Bone Clocks, because I will be reading more David Mitchell. Like, it is just an eventuality. It is just going to be happening. Until next time, please think about reading Cloud Atlas and continue to be lovely.